Hello all and welcome to a video response video, and this is my VR to my 5 most nostalgic PlayStation 1 games. Now this video response was started by a lad up north 89. In that video he tagged champion2D Rob, and in that video champion2D Rob tagged me. You can find both of their videos in the description below, so please do watch those after this, and also you can pick up the channels from there as well. Please do take the time to check out their channels and perhaps drop them a sub each. They both do fantastic content. Anyway, my most nostalgic games on the PlayStation 1, and yes, we're going to start right here with Destruction Derby. Now this is the game that initially made me really want a PlayStation 1. I saw this and it absolutely blew my mind. I can remember as a much younger person going to a local town centre and going to a Virgin Megastore, and in there upstairs they had a PlayStation 1 and a Saturn side by side in which you could play a game on. And the game that they had for ages on that PlayStation 1 was Destruction Derby. So not only did I see it, I got to play it before I ever owned it. And I was just in awe of it. It was just absolutely great. The graphics back then did blow my mind. I mean, you can argue now that the graphics aren't holding up well today. However, the gameplay is. I think the cars handle supremely well. I think the mechanics of when you get damaged, especially in the bowl, when it's you and 19 other cars, because there's 20 of you total, is just amazing. I mean, your car would take damage to the left side or get totally wiped out on the left side, and then obviously it would affect your steering in a manner to suit the fact you've been damaged on that side of your car. And that bowl was just brilliant, just pure carnage driving around. That initial meet-up in the middle, if you all just went driving forward, just pure destruction, absolutely amazing. And of course the championship mode as well, you're driving along and try to win races and such, and just the figure of 8 arena as well. Absolutely brilliant. I still love this game to this day. I still play this game to this day. And even though I own the second, which people say is the better game, for me, on pure nostalgia, I go back and play this more. And because of the nostalgia, I probably prefer it more as well. I just say it really does hold up well today in its gameplay, even if it doesn't by its appearance. Just what an amazing game it was. Just look at all that. Just look at all that. And I absolutely have a huge admiration for this game. And as I say, it made me want to buy a PlayStation 1, and it was an absolute fantastic decision, because the games that followed it up and were released up until the date, they stopped making games for it. Again, there were just so many belters. And with that, we'll move on to my second choice, which for me, again, remember, this is where I talk about most nostalgic, because I do believe the third one is a better game. But when Tekken 2 came out, wow, I was absolutely just blown. My mind totally blown when I got to play this at home. It was the first time that I realised that the arcade sort of imperfection ports had really, really come home. I mean, I loved my beat-em-ups, and when I got my hands on this at home, I just played it every night, non-stop. I say it was just near perfect to the arcade. It was colourful, it was beautiful. I mean, the first Tekken was a good game, don't get me wrong, but man, did they ramp it up with the second one. I mean, what an absolute belter of a fighting game. And as I say, this is actually my original copy that I had from back in the day. As you'll see, I've taken great care of it. The case isn't damaged at all. And then to open it up, to have that colourful disc art, there's my manual as well. And this one actually came with a demo in the back as well, autumn/Christmas releases. But it was just, again, it's just an absolutely brilliant fighting game. I couldn't believe the arcades had come home to this perfection, and I just absolutely pumped hours into it. Just what a game, what a game. The intros as well, and of course when you complete it as well, your endings for each character, some of them were quite humorous and very random as well. But yeah, could never put this one down. Could never put this one down. As I say, it for me, I still pop back to it to this day as well. Just absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And talking about arcade ports that came home and were, well, near perfect, or were perfect, brings me on to my third choice. Because in the arcades, I absolutely adored and loved playing Ridge Racer. Absolutely adored and loved it. I mean, the music, the sound of when you walk in the arcade, you could hear it, the Ridge Racer, and you just absolutely be drawn to it, the full life side cabinet and everything. So to have it come to the PlayStation 1 and have it come to the home console, absolutely had to have it. So when I did eventually save up all my money and buy it, again, just absolutely blown away with how near perfect it was to the arcade. And I just had so much fun with it. I would play that first track over and over again. Just it never got boring. It never got boring. It was just pure arcade brilliance. Such an enjoyable game to play. Again, the handling of the car was brilliant. Even though the graphics, yeah, you could, in today's age, you could say they have aged a bit, but just the gameplay again is king, and in this game it is fantastic. And as I say, I always prefer my games generally across the board to be a bit more arcadey, and this one absolutely nailed it. I mean, that there we go. Or when you're on the grid, and then the woman with the sign walks across, and then you've got the engineer that runs across from the other direction as well, and then the music kicks in, and just under that first tunnel, and yeah, there you go. And the good thing about this one is when you put this one in the PlayStation, when it boots up, you get a little mini game of Gallagher as well while it's loading. And if you beat that game of Gallagher, you get some extra cars as well. So yeah, I mean, I used to like being the red one because that was the one that was in the arcade, or the one I used to be in the arcade all the time. But it was nice to have all the other cars as well, and then have a go with those too. And it added a little bit of depth to a game that didn't have many tracks, but to me, it didn't need many tracks. Now, next up. Game number 4 for me is a football game, International Superstar Soccer Pro 98. Yes, before this, I used to have FIFAs on my Mega Drive. I used to have FIFAs, and I even had FIFA 98 Road to World Cup, but I played that to death and kind of was done with it. And then someone at work, where I was working at the time, said to me, "Why don't you try ISS Pro 98?" He said, "It's amazing. The goals you can score in it are out of this world. You should see this volley I scored and all that." And I looked into it. I had a look at it, and I thought, yeah, okay, I'll give that a try. I will give that a try. This is my original copy that I bought back in the day as well. Looked after, nice shiny metal sticker there saying Metal Gear Solid Demo, which is still in there as well, as you see, because I had it from new. I've looked after it. But anyway, this for me, it's got to be one of the most addictive football games I have ever played. For me, I actually, again, prefer the arcade feel to football games. When they get too realistic, I tend to find that my interest doesn't get held for long. But this was just pure arcadey type football. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I never tired of this. I really didn't. I could honestly play it for hours and hours and hours. The mechanics of the game in a game of football were just perfect, absolutely perfect. And I remember I loved it so much that, I mean, yeah, I started on level 3, which was the default level, because they had levels 1 to 5 rather than calling them amateur, professional, world class and all that. And then I got to the point where I could have it on level 5 and I could win the leagues and the World Cups just because I played it so much and got that good at it. But as I say, it's just, to me, it's how a football game should be, and it was absolutely brilliant. I absolutely loved it. Okay, my 5th and final choice is a wrestling game, because I'm a big wrestling fan as well. And I must admit, I've kind of gone off a lot of the modern wrestling games to this day because, again, they're just far too realistic, believe it or not. I prefer my games to be more arcadey, as I say. And then Smackdown came to the PlayStation 1. Now, I did have WWF Warzone, and that's not a bad game, but it always felt a little bit slow, and you'd have to put in a ridiculous combination to do a finishing move. And the only one that I could sort of learn, and I say learn because you'd never work it out, surely. So I had to look up all the finishing moves online. And the only one that I could perfect and do easily was Mankind's Mandible Claw. The characters in that game are limited, but it wasn't. It just didn't feel as nice as an arcade game would. And this is where Smackdown comes in. This again brought the wrestling game back to being arcadey. It was so easy to pick up and play. For a special move, you just had to fill up your Smackdown bar and be in the right situation. Like if you were, for the rock, you might have to be in front of someone for a rock bottom, or I think we had the people's elbow in it, so when they were lying on the floor, you had to be standing sort of above their head, and then you could press one of the shoulder buttons that would make you do your Smackdown move. And for me, it was Jeff Hardy. And obviously, I'd gone the top rope to do a swanton bomb. And that is another thing about this game. This was the first game I think he was a playable character in. If I'm wrong, it was certainly the first game I ever owned that I could be Jeff Hardy in. And Jeff Hardy is my favourite wrestler of all time. So when Jeff Hardy was a playable character in this, and the mechanics of this game was just totally arcadey and just so easy to pick up and play. I mean, I remember going around with mates and we just used to play ladder match after ladder match after ladder match because it was just that much fun. It was just brilliant. I think it had a create a wrestler thingy in it as well. There were unlockable characters as well, or you'd unlock the ability to make the characters or something like that. But it had a sort of a career mode as well, and again, I'd be Jeff Hardy in that, and I'd just win all the belts, and just absolutely love it. And by the way, the intro to this is amazing. Absolutely love the intro to this. One of my favourite intros to a game of all time. Now, I do know the second one might be considered a little bit better, and Jeff Hardy is in that, but the nostalgia of when this hit, and how much I played it, this one actually means more to me. And again, it's one of those occasions that, because of the nostalgia factor, it kind of wins over and makes me go back to it again and again and again. So absolutely adore Smackdown on the PlayStation 1, and it's my fifth and final choice in my 5 most nostalgic PlayStation 1 games. So, time to tag a couple of people. In the videos I've watched, a couple of people have been tagged at the end. So, who am I going to tag in this video? Well, I think my first choice has to be Eddie of Rollercore. I know he has an extensive PlayStation 1 collection, so I'd be absolutely fascinated to see what Eddie would pick. He has a few unusual ones, as well as the few that are, and a few that are well known as well. And then I think for my second choice is going to have to be Mr. PlayStation, who collects exclusively PlayStation stuff mainly. Not solely, but mainly, and that's Sean of Retro Games Revived. He collects all eras of PlayStation, all generations of PlayStation. So it'd be interesting to know what PlayStation 1 games Sean of Retro Games Revived picks. So they're my 2 tags, as well as my 5 most nostalgic PlayStation 1 games. So that just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching, and as always, take care.